We'd like to welcome you to the Healthcare Revolution podcast, where we empower you to take control of your health, restore your trust in the medical system, and achieve lasting wellness. I am your host, Brad Powell, Doctor of Physical Therapy and owner of an award-winning foundation physical therapy here in the Salt Lake Valley. Each episode, we dive into all things rehab prevention, overall health, bringing you expert insights from leaders across the healthcare fields. Please note, while we aim to provide with the best knowledge and advice, the opinions shared represent those of experts in the field and are not to be replaced with professional medical advice. So let's revolutionize healthcare and wellness together.
Humans have existed in communities. That's how we take care of each other. I don't know what has happened in, the modern world. People tend to just put on their blinders and they say, this is what I know. This is my lane. I'm staying in it. And I'm the one that swim upstream and I change lanes without a blinker. And I'm like, here I am and let's have a party. Humor is a big default of mine. I love to use humor. And I think there's a big misconception about humor, that humor doesn't belong in a serious work environment. Healthcare is a serious work environment, right? In healthcare, you deal with some really heavy things across all specialties. You have some heavy, hard things that you deal with. I would argue that the more serious the environment, the more you need humor. I find joy in being my authentic self. I found that when I'm authentic, people around me are authentic, and we just have a good time.
Welcome to this episode. We are so excited to have my friend Sammi here to talk about people first, the joy of building real relationships in healthcare. And it's so fun to have this topic because it's an off topic, but it's about humor, it's about building relationships, it's about working together as a team, and we're so excited to have you here, Sammi. Welcome.
I'm way excited to be here. I finally made it. I get to hang out with you for an hour.
Sammi is so fun. When did I meet you first?
It was a couple of years ago. It was a golf tournament for Lone Peak Hospital.
Yep. And I believe I got last in that golf tournament.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Yep, I think.
The award was a pickleball set, and they said you should pick a new sport.
That is right. Yep. And they said, you know what? Physical therapist, that's your thing.
Yeah, dude, go pick a different sport because this ain't yours.
It's not yours, but we had a blast.
We did.
It was a lot of fun.
We had a good time.
Yeah.
But what I love about Sammi is her unique ability to connect humans, and she can connect on such a quick level. She uses humor, just good humor, sometimes not so good humor, and she just keeps things really exciting. And her role is the development advisor at Rayus Imaging. Rayus Imaging is a national company for imaging, for x-rays, MRIs, things like that. And tell us a little bit about your role, and then with the company, but then tell us about your ability, your master ability to connect the community and what your role in that is.
Fabulous. Yeah. I mean, first of all, a little bit of background to me and kind of where I came from. I actually didn't have healthcare in my sights when I started looking at career paths and what I wanted to do. I spent a lot of money to goof around in college, basically, and I essentially said, what am I going to do with my life?
I've always thought about you as the party girl, but now I got a little bit more insight.
It was, absolutely. And so,
and still are.
Absolutely. It's just the difference is I get recognized in a positive way for it, and I get paid for it.
If Sammy's at the place I'm going, I'm there. Anything healthcare related, and I know Sammy's going to be there, I'm on it. Yep.
That's my goal. That's my goal. Isn't that awesome?
What a cool job.
It's my job now. And so, I mean, that's really what it was, is I kind of looked at myself and I was like, what am I good at? And I'm like, absolutely nothing except talking to people. Like, that's it. I have the gift of gab. What am I going to do?
That is the highest level skill someone can have.
That's you know what? Me. I'm biased, so I'll agree with you on that. But I definitely was like, what am I going to do with that? And of course, everyone's like, sales. You can talk to people. You can do sales, And I didn't want to be involved in sales as far as, here's a one and done. Here's a product, right? I lasted for 2 weeks at CenturyLink. And that was it. Because first of all, CenturyLink is awful. Don't ever get it. Like, it was so boring. I couldn't stand it. And also, I wanted to build relationships that last. You know, you have salesy when people think it's a one and done. That person leaves your store, your whatever, and they're gone. You know, that relationship essentially is severed and ends, and maybe they come back a few more times, but I wanted to build relationships. And so it was by pure accident. I was one of those that just organically just popped up. Hey, I'm in healthcare now. And I took a chance on Rayus a couple years ago, and I'm here to stay. And now my job, what I get paid to do, is build and foster relationships, which I think is the coolest job in the whole world.
It really is. If I wasn't, you know, an owner of my company, I would choose to be a marketing specialist, like a marketing director. I love doing it. It's like you just go around and talk to people and create connections and build communities and relationships and all that. It's so fun.
It is so fun. It's the best job in the whole world, but
I love it. Tell me
I think it's great.
about just day in and day out, what you do.
So my job is a little unique to Rayus in that we're kind of structured in that we have account executives that have a territory that they manage, and they go into offices and clinics and they talk with providers all day long about our services, and you know, they try and drum up business and things like that. That's where I started with Rayus. That's what I was doing for a handful of years, and then I actually had a baby. And
those babies, they set you back.
Just ruin everything, right?
We love them. They're so cute.
It is the best and the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I will just throw that out there simultaneously. It's a conflict the whole time. But I came to a crossroads, essentially. I was like, I love my job. I want to go back. The plan is to come back. And then I met my daughter. And then I spent a month with her.
Everything changes after you see that baby.
And I was, crap. Now I like being at home, and
I thought I liked my job, and now I like being with this baby more.
Yeah. So I made the decision to quit, and I quit my job for all of 24 hours. And I got a call.
And you had buyer's remorse. Oh, someone came after you. They're like, nope, you're not quitting.
Yeah, it was actually Ted Kyle.
Nice.
That said, you're not going to quit. We're going to create something for you. And so what they did, I am now a development advisor, and I'm kind of like this weirdo off the sales marketing team that I am still building relationships, and I'm still focusing on that. But my focus has kind of shifted from individual clinics. I don't have a territory anymore. Yeah. Now it's more on a larger, broader scale. So I still have my individual contacts like you. I still talk to you and others that I absolutely love and adore. But then I also build relationships with different groups like the APTA, Physical Therapy Association.
I still haven't got you at a board meeting. But...
you know, invite me and I'll show up. I'll bring the party.
Next board meeting, you're there.
I expect
Sometimes it gets a little dry in those board meetings. So
then I definitely need to be there.
We need to create some social media reels or something.
Yeah, we'll do, like the Shack.
Yep. You're in.
Okay. That's what I expect. Yeah. But
so tell me, what are the barriers you see in healthcare as you go into these offices and you're building these connections? What are the barriers you see?
Honestly, there's a few that really come to mind. When you're
I'm really talking about from the patient perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going in as a sales rep, essentially, selling, but you're more about relationships than referrals, right? And that's what I love about you. Is you're all about creating this relationship before you're about asking. We refer patients all the time to Rayus. But what I love about Rayus, this team that I've created such a bond with, I'm like, I'm sending it to Rayus, no one else, because I love them.
BRT, baby. That's what I live by. BRT, build relationships with trust.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, you go in, that's my goal. I just want to get to know you as a person. Everything else will follow naturally. If you go in, be authentic, say, look, I just want to get to know you. What are you doing here? Show me the cool stuff. I know you have cool stuff. And the referrals just come. Everyone knows when you're in a position like that, of course you're trying to grow business, right? Aren't we all? That we're all here to run our businesses, make money, pay the bills, that kind of thing, right? But when that's our focus, that's where those connections get lost, when they're not made a priority. But if you make those connections a priority, everything else just makes sense. It's no longer a concern or an issue because it just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of thinking from a patient perspective, healthcare workers kind of put up this wall sometimes.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to healthcare workers on building that relationship with patients, similar to what you do with providers? What are some barriers that you see, but then also what advice do you have to healthcare providers to improve the patient experience?
Don't be so rigid. Let things just kind of flow. Humor is a big default of mine. I love to use humor. And I think there's a big misconception about humor, that humor doesn't belong in a serious work environment.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare is a serious work environment, right? In healthcare, you deal with some really heavy things across all specialties. You have some heavy, hard things that you deal with. And I would argue that the more serious the environment, the more you need humor. Humor is actually what is going to elevate you and make people trust you more. There are tons of studies out there. You just Google humor in relationships and it'll pull up a million resources for you to look at. I think people get stuck in this idea that if I find something to laugh at in this situation, that it's going to discredit me. When really it does the opposite. People trust you more. They want to communicate more. They want to open up.
Essentially, it's humanizing them.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than some robot or some untouched figure that's just extremely intelligent. It's like, oh, they're human too.
Exactly. And what's kind of interesting with healthcare in particular, and I was thinking about this, that in healthcare, you can probably assume that everyone involved is very educated, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a degree. You have doctors of physical therapy, chiropractic, MDs, PAs, NPs, right? Everyone's learned, right?
How do you feel around that?
I am the dumb one in the room. That's why I have to make people laugh, because I'm like, hey, don't ask me smart questions.
Anything clinical, I'm not your gal. But
no,
if you want to have a good time,
I'll make you laugh. You smile when you see me, and that's fine. I'm totally comfortable being that person. That's my role. But if, as a healthcare provider, making those connections with your patients and making things a little lighthearted, your patients are going to want to continue to see you.
Give us some tips for those really rigid individuals. Like, you're going to coach them through how to do this.
I actually have a story.
And you're like, this is painful to watch. Let me coach you on this. Give us some scenarios. Yeah, give me a story.
So I have a story for you. There was an entire clinic that I worked really closely with about 6 years ago, and they were very rigid, all of them, from the provider down to the front office staff. And they just very gray and muted, right?
It's the worst when you go in this clinics. You can actually, because I used to obviously do a lot of marketing where I'd go walk in these clinics and let them know who we are. But you walk in, it's like, in those clinics, you're like, the energy here is just so low. It's like chronically low. And I only been here for 10 seconds. Yeah. And you haven't even said hi to me. I'm the only person in here.
Yep. You're like, what? Crawled.
Knock on the desk. Hello.
You're like, hi. You're like, I don't even want to smile. You're going to bite me. Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even look up. They're like, sit down. Yeah. Here's your paperwork. I'm like, at least make eye contact.
At least look at me.
Yeah. Anyways, interrupted your story. Keep going.
You're totally fine. So I had these discs. So when a patient comes to see us, we get a disc with all their images, right? Yeah. This particular group wanted all of their discs hand delivered. So I was like, perfect. This is an opportunity for me to actually go in person regularly. I'm going to build this relationship. I thought that was all I needed, was just a disc and me to be in the door. Yeah. And after a couple weeks, I noticed I'm actually not connecting with anyone. I'm leaving. They got their disc, but nothing special happened.
Purely transactional.
Yeah. So I started thinking, what am I going to do my next visit? This next disc, what am I going to do differently? And as I was walking in the door, this is so weird. I'm such a weirdo. But I was like, do what you do in the elevators. And I'll tell you.
You cracked the joke,
what
didn't you?
I do in elevators.
Yes, this is good advice. I love this.
When I see elevators are awkward situations, right? You're in a tight space with people you don't know.
I look around.
Yeah, you're like,
and it's only 5 seconds, but 5.
And it's a long 5 seconds. Yeah. And if you're in our office, it's like 30, and it's awful.
Slow elevator.
Yeah. So you're in there, and people don't want to be in there. Like, don't talk to people. So I'm like, I'm wearing new socks today. And I was like, I'm going to do that when I go in with this disc.
That's awesome.
Because I can't think of
Something
anything
so
else.
random to crack the, break the ice here.
So I did that.
They won't forget that. That's for sure. Some weird girl came in today and told me she's wearing new socks, and I looked down and she's wearing heels.
Yeah, she's not even wearing socks. But I did that. We'll call her Shelby at the front desk, and I was like, Shelby, I got a disc for Dr. So-and-so, and she just does her usual, wave me back and put my hand on the desk. Shelby, I'm wearing new socks today. And then I just walked away. I let her sit in that for a while.
Process that.
And then, as the door shut behind me, I heard her laughing. She was hysterical. She's like, and then the other people around her were like, what did she just say to you? And she's like, she's wearing new socks today.
I'm doing a marketing retreat for my marketing team this next week. Using that one. That's great.
It works every time.
Yeah, the thing is, you got to stick out, right?
Yeah.
The front office staff, they get bombarded with so many patients and insurance things and there's so many to-dos that they forget to be effective with people. Yeah. Effectiveness is slowing it down a little bit and be human.
Yeah.
We get so trapped in tasks and being efficient that we forget to slow down and have a little laugh every once in a while.
And honestly, the front office staff, just about anywhere you go, I would say they're probably underappreciated a lot of the time. So as a provider, you're running your own clinic, check in with them. Make sure that they're enjoying their job and make it fun, make it lighthearted. And then as someone going into, make sure you take the time to interact with them. As a patient, not just in my sales role, I also try and connect with people.
Yeah.
When I go into a drive-through and I order food, whenever they give me their total and they say, okay, we'll see you at the window, I always say thank you and hey, you're fabulous. And I always hear him giggle every time over the intercom.
That is the best.
And then by the time I reach the window, I'm like, I know my food's not ever getting spit in. Because I said they're fabulous. I do it with front office associates as well. I tell them, hey, you're fabulous. I
guarantee you, just those small tweaks in what you do make a significant impact. And next time you went in to meet with Shelby, what happened?
Oh, I get Wade. Hey, girl, come on back. She's here. And you know what?
She's like, come meet all the doctors. I told them all about you.
Yes. And it kind of shifted things. And I started to notice when I went in, it was like a different energy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to take credit for that from my one little dumb sock joke, right? Yeah. But also what shifted is the way I looked at them. Mm-hmm. And I think that made a big difference for me as well, as I saw them differently. I looked forward to going there instead of just saying, oh, here we go.
Yeah. And ultimately, when patients are in a hospital or they're in our clinics, they're going through some of the hardest stuff they've ever gone through.
For sure.
And they're not sure how to navigate this. They're not sure, if they trust. Like they're not sure what to do. Where do I put my hands? Like what do I do with all this clinical information that I was just given? And having a provider, that can have a little humor in things and keep things lighthearted can build that bridge.
Yeah.
And connect them from a clinical standpoint to a human standpoint. Because ultimately, humans want human connection. Yeah. And we're lacking that in healthcare right now, I believe, because we have so much volume of information to sort out that we forget to be human.
Yeah, I think so. And I think providers, too, you get maybe stuck in this, I'm solving a puzzle, right? A patient comes in, here's
like a Rubik's Cube. I'm so focused on the Rubik's Cube, I can't even look up and say hi to you.
Yep. Here's my symptoms, figure it out. And you start to view people as a puzzle, and that dehumanizes them as well. Yeah. And I think everyone, everywhere in situation, they just want to feel noticed as a person. And there are a million very small ways that you can make people feel human.
Yeah. We had this pediatrician up in Salt Lake. We loved her, Sherry Johnson. She was a beautiful human, but she was so ridiculously intelligent, but she always made it a good time. She always remembered that I was a physical therapist. She always remembered my wife was a child life specialist, and she knew things about us. And she would always crack little jokes here and there, and just had such lighthearted communication. And then when the clinical side came out, she was super efficient. And I was like, you just blew my mind. Like, with what you just said. I'm amazed with how much information is in your head and that you were able to customize it to what I needed. And the thing is, she knew I was a clinician. She knew my wife has been in healthcare, and she customized the message to us, you know? But it was short and sweet. The majority of the time was spent on just connection. And then we spent like 5 minutes on, okay, this is where he's at. This is, you know, where he should be in the next, 6 months. These are the milestones. You got any questions? He's healthy. Yeah. He's doing great. Keep it up. You guys are awesome parents.
And she's a perfect...
And you're fabulous.
And you're fabulous. You should throw that in there. You're fabulous.
I'm throwing it in from now on. You should. Hey, you're fabulous.
Fabulous is a fabulous word. And I'm here for it.
I love it.
But no, she's a perfect example of that. You know, spend the extra, 5 minutes asking someone how their weekend was, what their summer plans are.
Or if they have new socks on.
And
there's nothing better than new socks.
I'm in Costco.
I mean, they wear out fast, but they're a good size.
They're all the same color, so I don't have to match them.
I see why you get those.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure that's what I was wearing when I went in that day. It was nothing exciting.
I love it. So give us some advice from the patient end. Like, what have you seen? What recommendations would you give to the patient to build this bridge, maybe with a rigid provider?
I think understanding...
Because essentially you're doing that on the other side. You're not the patient, right? But you're breaking down these barriers and walls and building connection. I've never seen someone create a connection with a provider like you. And that's really why I want to get all this feedback from you, because teach us, like, what do you do to break down those walls? You give some really good components, but what can our patients do?
I think go in.
Do you use the elevator for the patient too?
Yeah. Or
anyone.
Just make sure that you make it as awkward as possible when those doors close, so that they are like pushing the button to get. Yeah, they're like, oh my gosh, this won't go fast enough. And you know what? I use that as a vibe check, right? If the person reacts one way or another, I at least kind of know, like, okay, you're my person.
It's my barometer to know.
I'm like, I might need to work a little harder on, but we'll get there. It's going to
take a few months to break that one down.
Yep, I'll just tell you when I got new socks on every time for a month till you're like, whatever, show me your socks before I even have to say anything, you know? But I'd say make yourself be seen. Don't be afraid to go in and say, hey, I'm here, you know, and just be very excited.
Yeah, so say someone goes into a waiting room and they're, not even greeted. You're saying like, hey, I'm here.
Yep.
Like make it fun, make it lighthearted, because ultimately, what do those lessons do for those front office staff or those providers when you do stuff like that? What do you think?
They're like, this is better. I like this.
Yeah.
This feels
it's a
good.
different energy, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't felt that energy in a while.
Exactly.
Right? And maybe I need to create that energy, because the energy that you bring as a provider or anyone in healthcare or even the patient, it can change someone's whole day.
It really can, especially because, I mean, a patient, why are they at the doctor or seeing a clinician of any kind? They're in pain, something's broken, they're not feeling well, right? And it's really easy, I think, I'm grumpy when I don't feel good, right? But I've noticed that when I walk into a doctor's office, even when I don't feel good, if I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the patient they remember today for whatever reason, whatever I come up with that day, the socks thing is a great example, but I feel better. I didn't even need medicine, making those connections and laughing is, they say laughter is the best medicine, and it really kind of is.
Yeah. Well, essentially, it's a dopamine effect, right?
Yeah.
So your hormone, the dopamine hormone, is released in your bloodstream, and it feels good.
Yeah.
It's just a natural way of getting dopamine.
And oxytocin.
Yeah.
They've actually done studies, because we're humans and we have to study everything to death, right?
I mean, why not?
So let's study laughter.
Gotta make sense out of it.
Yeah. And they've actually found that when people laugh together, it releases oxytocin, and a lot of it. They actually compared it to having a baby or having sex. And
fun fact for the day.
That's when just people are connecting on the deepest level, right? So if you're laughing with someone, you are actually physically, physiologically connecting with someone.
And I would say that's one of the key components that's missing in healthcare. Would you agree?
Yes.
How do you feel like, just generally speaking, we've given advice to healthcare workers, given advice to patients. What do you think we should just do as a whole to engage with more just fun? Like just having more of a good time and not making things so serious all the time.
I think viewing healthcare as a system has kind of made us, it's kind of broken us a little bit. It is a system, but what is it made up of? People, right? And I think we just get in this, how do we fix the machine? How do we fix the machine? What cog is broken? What do we eliminate? What do we add? What do we, grease the wheels? And really what it is just some wires need to be connected, and that's it. And I think is from a provider standpoint, you want to make those connections for your patient. And from a patient standpoint, you want to make those connections for your family. When you are treated the way that you need to be treated, you're healthier. When you're healthier, your family's doing better, right? As a healthcare provider, when you and I are making connections, we have a great relationship. Who benefits the most? It's not me or you. It's our patient, right? And I think looking at it from that standpoint, I'm going to make Brad Powell laugh today because our relationship is going to grow and our patients are going to be taken better care of. And on the patient side, I'm going to make my doctor laugh today because he's going to take good care of me and I'm going to feel better after this visit.
Yeah. Why do you spend so much time building these relationships across healthcare? Like, why do you feel like, or why do you spend so much time building this team?
Aside from the fact that it's really fun to do.
Obviously there's the fun, there's the business aspect, but there's like a deeper meaning behind what you do. And I don't want it to go unnoticed here because you essentially create this community of people that we're all in this together kind of thing,
Yeah. It's the many minds concept, having a community through the dawn of time. Humans have existed in communities. That's how we take care of each other. I don't know what has happened in, the modern world. People tend to just put on their blinders and they say, this is what I know. This is my lane. I'm staying in it. And I'm the one that I swim upstream and I change lanes without a blinker. And I'm like, here I am and let's have a party. And people are actually receptive to that. And I'm driven by wanting to be authentic. I find joy in being my authentic self. And I found that when I'm authentic, people around me are authentic and we just have a good time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's going on.
And I was somewhat joking earlier when I said, if you're at an event, I'll be there. But I was actually being serious because when I've been in healthcare, I'll say my whole life. I used to race motocross, broken a lot of bones. I've been in the system for a really long time. I've been a clinician for 6 years. Man, healthcare is boring sometimes. I'm like, if I have to go to one more presentation where someone's not excited to talk about their topic, then I'm gonna.
It's such a drab.
Like I can't. It's a hard time going to conferences now, right? And when I speak, I make sure it's dang good. And we're going to have a good time as I'm speaking because I'm not going to be that dull, like, let's throw up some slides and just kind of go through the slides. And like, all right.
Here's a picture of an elbow. What's in the elbow? Cartilage.
Let's go over the anatomy of the elbow. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, you put me to sleep.
Yeah.
It's literally so hard for me to go to clinical education now at my level because people are so bland, they're so boring. And I love when people are like you at these events because I usually kind of just go towards you guys and we just kind of chit chat in the back.
And it's a great time, right? We have
a good time and I learned a bunch of stuff back there,
You know what I did recently, and there might be people that come across this that totally remember this. 250 chiropractors in a room, and I was emceeing the event.
Oh, heck yeah.
I had 4 speakers that I had brought in from all over, and I had to introduce them and keep the flow going and things. And after my first introduction, was like, something's got to change, right? This is so
The energy here is
lame.
just, yeah.
And I had good topics, I had good speakers, but the energy just needed something, And there was an attorney there. You actually know him, but an attorney there that said, "Hey, I dare you to say a joke." And
Yes.
I said, "What are we wagering?" And he said, "Lunch." And I said, "What's the joke?" Because you underestimate me for food. I will do a lot of things. So what's the joke? And I got up there the next time and I said the joke. And the joke was, why are ducks covered in feathers? To cover their butt quacks in front of 250 chiros.
And how did the group respond?
It flat.
Ooh.
Not a single ha-ha. And I was standing there like, please laugh. I'm getting Thai food out of this. Someone laugh. And I got the 4 sympathy like ha ha ha's.
Oh no.
But the next time I got up there for the next speaker, I started getting heckled. The chiropractors in the back are like, tell us a joke. And,
Yes.
and they were like interacting with me, and they were just like, the energy started to change. And now I will see people that were there as attendees, and they'll see me at some other random something.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, Sammi, tell us a joke.
Yeah.
And it's like,
have you seen the movie Santa Claus 3? This is Santa Claus 3. You know when they go, have you seen the Santa Claus series?
yeah.
So in the Santa Claus 3, when Santa has to get married,
Oh,
and he goes to the work party. That's what it makes me think of, these boring people. And, Santa Claus gets up and like changes the party and everyone gets excited. It's like, what's creating emotion? What's creating excitement in your life? Don't get caught up in so much of your job that you forget to have fun too.
Exactly. Well, if you're going to work in healthcare, or if you're going to be involved in healthcare as a patient, passion has to be there. Otherwise, you don't belong there.
Yeah.
I would argue that time and time again. If you don't have the passion, then just don't.
Switch you up a job.
Yeah.
Get you something else.
Go to be somewhere else. Because if without that passion, without that drive, you're just a cog in a wheel, and that's what healthcare does not need.
Yeah. So I'm kind of going back to the patient here again. I'm thinking about these patients that are like, well, yeah, I want to have humor and be fun, but I'm nervous. I don't want to take up the doctor's time. And, what would you say to them?
Do it anyway. Make the joke, be cynical. I think especially in those situations where you don't feel good. I've been to ERs before, and they always ask you the same questions. Are you pregnant? Are you, all these things, and and I will give a really sarcastic answer because
they have to take a second look there.
Like, are you pregnant? I'm like, sure hope not. That's all I
7
need
times.
right now. Like I have 2 already. Like, don't do that to me, and they're just like, wait, what? The yes or no is okay. And I'm like, is it though? Because you're just as bored as I am, And so it's like, be sarcastic, be cynical, be funny, make a joke. It will help you feel better.
Yeah. And, from the healthcare side, I really appreciate when patients are like this, because we hear a lot of negative stuff all day. I'm hurting, this hurts, that hurts. And my job is to help those people, and I feel so much empathy and compassion. But sometimes it gets a little weighing down, right? And when we have this one offer like you, it's really nice, but we need more of it. We need more people that are just, let's have a good time. Life is hard enough as it is. We don't need to make it any harder. Let's have a good time, even if you are in pain. There's a huge benefit to having, good energy and kindness and, empathy towards each other. So what would you say are the key components to energy, or like energy in a space? So with our team, we talk about, the 5 senses, right? You have the lighting in the room, and that's why all of our clinics have open windows. The whole thing, floor to ceiling, is just windows, right? So you can see outside. It's natural lighting. We have citrus scents. So we have these scents on the walls that produce citrus to essentially give you energy. And then we have the collective energy of the people in the space, what you exude. And then we have airflow. We have the colors. We have how cleanly it is. We have all those things. Is there anything else you'd add to that really helps the morale of the space?
Start with a smile.
Hmm.
I think walking into a room, if you are smiling, it's contagious.
Mhm.
People see a
talking karma
smile.
smile,
Don't be creepy. Like, no, be genuine. Smile with your face,
Yeah.
your whole face,
Yeah.
even when you're not feeling like it. Because you walk into a room and you are smiling, you will be met with smiles every single time. Because on a subconscious level, it just cues our brains to return that smile.
Yeah.
And just the same too, if you walk in and you're like, I hate life. Everything sucks. Everything's gray. I'm an Eeyore. Then you're met with that.
One of my mentors told me once that I sounded like Eeyore on the phone. I made sure it never happened again. I'm like, I'm gonna make sure my tone and my voice, everything is just dialed in before I talk to you.
You should be a Tigger.
Minus the list. Be a Tigger. What would you say I am? If there was a character that you would choose for me, what would it be?
Tigger.
Tigger? For sure? I'm not Eeyore.
You're not Eeyore, and you're not an anxious Piglet.
Not Piglet?
No, you're not Piglet.
That's great. I love that.
And you're not grumpy, so you can't be Rabbit.
I mean, that's very true.
Yeah.
I'm Tigger. I love it. What's something you wish every healthcare professional understood about connection, humor, just building the patient experience? What do you hope that they would know?
I would say that as a provider, looking for those connections in both your patients and other healthcare providers is going to improve your patient experience.
Yeah.
And I think as clinicians, you want your patients to get better, right? But you also want to create patients for life. And I think providers get stuck in this is my job. This is how I make a living. What's my bottom line? And then you start to look at what can I do to grow my business? And it becomes a very black and white. I need to do better. I need to get more volume. I need to do this. And the connections are being lost. But once you strive to make connections in the healthcare community with other providers and you start to trust them and they start to trust you, your patients are being taken care of in the way that they need to be taken care of. And they're getting better and they're coming back and they're bringing their family. And because you're making those connections with the patients, you're making them laugh. You're showing that you understand that they are a human and they have feelings and they have concerns and you're validating them. And then you are also showing, hey, I'm a human taking care of humans. They start to appreciate that and they come back. And all of the sudden you're focusing on these connections and everything else
takes care of itself. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. So we have in all of our clinics, I read a book called The Vivid Vision. And this book's all about like reverse engineering your life and your business plans and things like that, and pretty much helping your vision become reality. So it challenges you to create this vision document. And ours, the title at the top is to become the choice provider in the community. And I put in there become because it's something we're constantly working on.
Yeah.
But ultimately, our primary product, what we're striving to create is raving fans. Like, we want these people to be lifetime. We want to be the provider for a lifetime, not just for this episode of care, right? You know, not too many people have a PT, their family PT.
Yeah.
And that's what we're striving to create is we're switching that model. We want people to think, that's my PT. And all my family goes to that PT, just like their primary care, just like their dentist. Like, we want them to think, that is my PT every time. Any pain, any injury I get, Brad's my guy. You know what I mean? And that's what we really strive to create with our team is raving fans with every single person. Because you're right. If we get lost in building volume or building a clinic or, you know, getting referrals, whatever it is, we lose vision and sight of the humanness of what we do.
Right.
But ultimately, if we put the connection piece first and we focus on human interaction and building relationships, everything just takes care of itself.
Yeah. There's a big difference between, hi, how are you? And hi, how are you?
Yeah.
How
Making
are
eye
you?
contact in that.
Yeah.
Human to human interaction. I love that.
You can say the same thing. It's not a big epiphany or this big miraculous change that anyone has to implement. It's very small, conscientious. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word today.
You said it.
You know what I said.
Good enough.
You know what I mean. Those changes, you have to think about it at first, and then eventually it just kind of happens.
Yeah. When in my first clinic, I made these little platforms so the patient was sitting here and the platform was facing this way. So essentially, like, you're looking at my shoulder as I'm taking notes. And as a clinician, it made me feel really uncomfortable. I loved them because they're black and they're sleek and nice. But I never like looked at a patient, you know?
Yeah.
And now I ripped them out of all my clinics because I don't want my clinicians facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
They literally use the treatment bed and they face the patient and take notes like this.
Yeah.
So they can make eye contact and actually see and feel what's going on, because, 70% of communication, they say, is nonverbal, right? If I'm just listening to you and I don't see you, then I'm losing so much what you're saying.
And as a clinician, you should absolutely pay attention to nonverbal cues, because a patient will try and paint a picture that they think they should be painting rather than what's really happening.
Oh, I see that all the time.
And it's frustrating.
I'm like, why can't you just say what's supposed to be said?
Yeah, just say it, man.
Because what you said is not really adding up to what your eyes and your face said. So
you winced, but you say you don't have any pain.
Yeah, like you jumped, but was that ticklish? Was it...
Go for a run. Yeah, I'm gonna just watch. Just shut up and I'll just watch what you're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. My undergrad was communications, and communication and leadership. And a lot of people ask me like, well, why'd you do communication and leadership? And I'm like, well, that's my job. All I do is educate people. Like, it makes sense to me that I'm a really good communicator.
Absolutely.
Because that's 90% of what I do.
Yeah.
I heal people through education. And yes, I use my hands, and yes, I use progression of therapeutic exercise. But ultimately, if I can teach you what you need to know, you don't need me in the end. Like, if I can't, by the time we're done with our plan of care, you can't manage that injury. Like, it's not gotten better, but you actually can't manage it moving forward. I haven't done my job well.
No.
If you have to keep coming back to me for the same recurring thing, I'm not doing my job. So we're going to get it better, but I'm also going to teach you how to do it next time if it happens again, and you're going to decrease it and do it in a quarter of the time. And you won't need me. I'll give you some parameters. If it doesn't get better in 2 weeks, or it's not significantly get better, come see me. But here are some tools that can empower you to really take control of your body and listen to what's going on.
And that's perfect, because then they trust you, right? Because you're doing your job, you're doing what's expected. And then when the next thing happens, because if you're like me, there's always going to be the next thing. And I'm going to come to you because I trust you, because you will help me take care of myself. And as medical providers, we are all educators. And if you can't communicate, if you can't keep people engaged in that education, then you're failing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me how you think we can build stronger, more unified healthcare communities. What would you say there?
Get out of your silo. And I think...
And we use that term quite a bit. Can you define silo for us?
A silo, I'll say box too. We'll say box.
Yeah.
I think people build a box that they're a comfort box. We'll call it that. This is what I know. This is what I'm comfortable in. So I'm going to box myself here. And that usually has to do with your specialty as a healthcare provider. You're a PT.
I don't really see outside this box. I don't know anything else what anyone else does. I just know what I do, and I stay in the zone.
And that's it. That's where I'm comfortable. Growing is uncomfortable. Stretching is uncomfortable. You have to be good at it to be a good healthcare provider. Educate yourself on other specialties. Even though you're not going to necessarily be treating the patient that way, you should be educated on how the patient will be treated so you can make a good referral. When you're referring for pain or surgery or anything like that, and you refer them to somebody that doesn't take care of them, that's a bad reflection on you, even though you're not the one treating the patient.
I was just doing some orientation with some onboarding with a clinician this morning, and we have a physician directory that we've created for our clinics. And I was going over our directory and I said, these are the people I have personally vetted out. These are the ones I fully trust.
This is who I'd send my grandma to. Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, if I'm sending grandma, well, depends on what grandma.
We won't say which one.
Let's say one of two. One of two grandmas is going here and the other one is going here.
I love it. But yeah, I mean, we want to vet those out because it's a direct reflection on me, right? Yeah. And when I know the providers and I know what they do, I'll say, I know this specific provider. He's exceptional. He's the best in his field. Here are some options to consider, right? There's injections, there's ablations, you want to start conservative. Those things need to happen first. We don't need to skip all the stuff and go straight to surgery. There's other options, right? And it's my job to know all these other professions. And I'm not an expert at all of their fields, but I need to know enough about them to educate my patient so they know the options available. Because most people think, oh, it's PT and then surgery. Mm-hmm. But there's literally like 75 things that you can do in between.
That work
really effectively. We just got to find the one that works right for you.
Yeah. And how would you know that if you stayed in your box?
I know.
And didn't bother to venture out and get to know people?
What do people do? To get to know other professions? How do you know so much about all these professions?
I make a visit. And when I make a visit, say I come to see Brad Powell for the first time, I'm going to walk in and be like, tell me what you do here. I am actually genuinely interested in what you do here. What are the cool things that you have going on?
Everyone wants to talk about themselves. I'm like, let me tell you about me, Sammi.
Every time. And it works when you are genuine. Be genuine. That's the key.
Every salesperson or marketing person knew what you just said. That's gold. Right there. That's like a $10,000 education. So yeah, like do that. Like be more interested in what people are doing than interesting. Because so many people are like, well, let me tell you about me. Mm-hmm. Let's just cut to the chase. Right. But ultimately you're leading from the other side. Tell me what you do. I want to know what you do. It looks like you have an awesome place here. Heard great things about you, and
show
it
me
opens
around.
this door.
Ask for a tour. Because they will absolutely take you on a tour.
Show you my space. Oh yeah.
You want to see the tables? You want to see this equipment? Let me tell you what we do here.
You know what mine is? If you come to my clinics,
you gonna show me?
I'm going to show you the bathroom. All my staff knows. They always joke. They're like, "Has Brad showed you the bathroom?"
State of the art.
Well, I put a lot of effort into
It's a nice bathroom.
Did you?
Yeah.
Comment on our bathroom. What'd you notice? Oh, don't be just.
I used your lotion.
There's lotion in our bathroom.
I used your lotion, and it's like super nice. I have like the skin of a crocodile or an alligator.
There's lotion in there. There's tampons in there. There's poopery in there.
There is poopery, which I didn't need. I'm gonna just add that. I did not need that.
But yes, I want to show off my space because the reason I do is because I put so much effort into building spaces where people feel inspired. Like literally every single thing on the wall, every book on the shelf has been thought about. Like the rug, the speakers, like everything, even the smell, the lighting, like everything I've put a unique touch into. So when people want to see it, I'm super excited. I'm like, let me show you.
Right?
Whether you're excited to see it or not.
But doesn't that make you feel good? And now you've connected with that person.
Yeah.
Over something that took 10 minutes.
Spilling out what their spiel is,
And it takes no time. No time. And honestly, as a sales professional or as a patient too, same concept applies. As you're learning about what someone does at their clinic, you will know how you fit. And you'll know if it's a good fit pretty quickly. And so as a sales professional, I got this, and this. This will help you. And as a patient, be like, that's what I need. I think patients now are starting to advocate for themselves a lot more.
Absolutely.
They are going, before they even step foot into a clinic, they have done research. Mm-hmm. They've looked things up.
Yeah.
Yep. And so
what do you feel like has caused that?
Distrust.
That's kind of part of the revolution is the patient is now engaged more than ever before. But you feel like the mistrust.
I do think
what do you feel like has led to the mistrust?
I don't know. I think it's a collection of things. I think back in the day, we didn't have the information that we do. So patients really weren't able to educate themselves on anything. They just had to go off of what a provider said. Now at our fingertips, we can put in our symptoms and we can
Chat GBT it.
You can discover that you have some
We
form
did a
of
whole
cancer
podcast
when
on
you
that
don't.
and realize like the massive inaccuracies with Chat GBT and going to your symptoms there. But you're right. I mean, there are these resources that have never been there before. So patients are coming in. It's like, well, I've self-diagnosed based on what Google said or Chat GBT says. There's these 3 things.
Yeah.
When it can really be misleading to a clinician because their side is to actually be diagnostic and use the human brain to diagnose your issue rather than some computer. Right?
Yeah. And you will never, ever replace the human factor ever in healthcare. We use AI. Actually, Rayus even uses AI now to perform MRIs, and it's absolutely cool, right? It's so cool, the technology that exists now.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't replace the human touch. You can you can't replicate that. A machine will never be able to get that right. The gut feelings, the intuition, the smile, the humor, a machine can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to elevate your healthcare.
You know, we're going into a new age of technology, and we had these kiosks that were coming to our clinics, and I had learned about them throughout the nation, and I thought to myself, okay, a kiosk can replace a person. And a lot of these salespeople and other clinicians were talking to me about these. I'm an early adopter. I love being an early adopter, especially in healthcare and the PT setting, because most PTs are so outdated. They're like the late adopters, the late, like 10 years later than anyone else. I've been doing that, sir. Than any other healthcare facility. It's PTs are always last. So I'm always like jumping the gun, like I want to get the next best thing. You know, so these kiosks came out where there's a virtual front desk, right? You can click on it, someone pops up on the screen. And they're virtual, so there's a lot of human touch that gets lost. But we had in our clinics, and the thought was to replace people, right? But then I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, we are losing the human touch to what we do if we're just going to a computer. Yeah. You know, some kiosks where you check in, do your payment, maybe you talk to someone virtually, maybe they're busy, I don't know. But ultimately, we adopted a hybrid version because some people like the kiosk and some people don't. But we never allow just the kiosk to be the only thing, right? We kind of created this hybrid. If the front office person is busy, someone can check in at the kiosk, but a person is always there to greet them.
Yeah. And that makes a big difference. You have a tool, right? And you use it in the way that I think, should be used to workflow, right? But yeah, never lose the human touch.
And just like AI too, AIs help us with efficiencies, but it's not there to replace it. We got to be really thoughtful about how we use it because it cannot replace the human brain. You know, our unique ability to, because sometimes when, you know, as a provider, if someone's telling me something, I'm feeling something different and I got to use my intuition and my scientific brain to say, that seems not accurate. And then I question more. And I say, tell me what that means. I need more understanding. AI cannot do any of that.
No.
They cannot feel, right?
No.
I can sense that there's something here that I need to know more, right? Sometimes I'll say that to patients. And then they'll break down and the truth will really come out, right?
Right.
You know, and asking the right questions is really key and critical. And AI can't do that, unfortunately.
No. But you, again, like you said, you have that intuition, but you also have the connection with your patients where they trust you to be able to come out and say what's really going on. Patients all the time get so guarded in the clinic setting for whatever reason. And maybe they had a bad experience. Maybe their family member had a bad experience or whatever, or they're just plain scared. Yeah. And, you know, there are people that don't want the answer because they're scared of what the answer is. But to be able to trust your healthcare provider that they actually do have your best interest at heart, then you'll get the best care.
Yeah. And if you don't trust them, find a new one.
Absolutely. Advocate. If something doesn't feel right as a patient, don't be afraid to go get that second or third opinion, or, you know, it's your life. Your health is everything.
What's interesting is so many people are, you know, in the construction world. They used to own a painting company. It's so random, I know, but I used to paint houses. That's what I did for 8 years, and I had a ton of employees, and I painted houses. But in the construction world, no one is shy to get 3 bids.
No.
Like, I gotta get 3 bids before I make any decisions. And you're like, that's totally fine.
You're like, okay, let us know
Whatever.
when those
We're
come
the
back
best,
worse. Yeah.
But let me teach you what is different, right? And that's what I do when I bid out these houses. Is there's some key components when you get a second bid that's really important. Number one is how much prep work they do, right? I could be putting in 30 hours of prep work, scraping and sanding and getting all prepped right. And then the next guy might only do 5 hours of prep work. So asking that question is really important. Number two, the quality of paint.
Yep.
It could be like an $800 difference just if you're going to go high grade versus low grade. And maybe they'll throw in some water and mix it up too. Like what quality of paint you're going to get. Just because there's a lower price doesn't mean the quality is still there, right? And the same thing in healthcare. If you are not feeling you're getting the quality care that you deserve, don't be rude. You don't need to throw down a gauntlet and burn the place down by all means. Just go somewhere else. I know it takes time, but ask your resources, ask your friends, ask your family, who are you going to for PT? Who are you going for imaging, or your surgeon? Who do you use? And then you develop this community of everyone that you trust, and you essentially have a database of any provider that you would need. And they all give a crap.
Yeah.
And they're not jackasses.
Buy once, cry once.
Yeah.
And don't be a jackass.
Yeah. And that's our advice for the day. As a healthcare worker and a patient, don't be a jack. You'd use the term
butthole.
Yeah. I like jackass better, but
me too.
Okay, so my last question for you. We call this podcast the Healthcare Revolution. What does the Healthcare Revolution mean to you?
I actually love what you're doing here, and what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. And that's, to me, essentially you are trying to take a machine and you're making it a little bit less of a machine as you go along. Yeah. And it's something that has needed to happen for a long time, I think. And people, the general public, the patient, are the ones that have kind of started this revolution. People started to cue into certain things and maybe say, I don't think that's quite right. Maybe something isn't where it needs to be or being said how it needs to be said. And you are seeing that and seeing a need, and you are now elevating that, and you're getting other healthcare providers involved, and you're saying, hey, let's make a change. Let's make this not a thing anymore. Let's make this about people. Yeah. We're humans taking care of humans.
Yeah. Ultimately, yeah. That's what it's about. It's, on our viewpoint too. Let's connect each other. Let's work together as a team. Let's, get us all in the same environment and row in the same direction. There's no purpose, and no one needs to be in the driver's seat besides the patient. Everyone sometimes fights for the driver's seat. Like, no, I want to be in control. I want to wear the white coat. Mm-hmm. Like all these things. It's like, no, the only person in that driver's seat should always be the patient. We're helping them navigate this terrain and figure out the best solution by giving them options, but ultimately they get to choose.
Absolutely. Patients, and I explain that in settings when I'm talking to patients all the time. I was like, you have a right to choose, and you have providers, and the way the hospital systems and things like that are built, they're basically just told where to go. Yeah. And I'm like, you can go wherever you want to, but someone has to help educate the patients on what their options even are. Yeah. And that's what's not happening. But we are seeing a shift where providers are coming out of their little box and they're talking to other providers. They're building those connections. They're saying, hey, you know what? I know someone that can help you with this. You came into my office today, but let me refer you to this person that I know works really well with this specific thing. And you can go, I promise you'll get good care there. Yeah. And that provider too, same thing. Hey, I know Brad Powell. He's a great PT. He's going to take care of you after this. Or, whatever branch you want to take, the patients have somewhere to land and they feel good about it. And they are now taking control of their own healthcare, which has been absent for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sammi, I deeply appreciate what you do. When I go to these events, you literally bring so much light to the events. We've talked about this. It's so exciting to be around you. And I just want to be a better provider when you're there. It just makes me really excited for what we're doing and what we're building and the community that we're bringing together. And I love Rayus too. I love what they do. You're a huge benefit for me because when I have issues with some sort of imaging for a patient, I just call Sammy or call Alicia and like get these people, like, answer this question. You text me back really quick and resolve it for me. And that's what it's all about, is making each other's jobs easier, right? I love that I can just put in a referral and patient can just drive down the street and get their MRI or get their x-ray today, and we don't have to wait, and you guys do all the back end work for us. You make it simple. And I love that about the Rayus team, is everyone works together as a collective team. So appreciate what you do. And thanks for being on the podcast today.
Hey, you are fabulous.
Thank you. Great way to end this. And you're fabulous as well.